Have you ever wondered how four lads from Liverpool changed the course of music forever? Picture this, a bustling port city in the north of England, the early 60s. Amidst the shipyards and the Mersey beat, four young men were making a name for themselves. John Lennon, the outspoken and rebellious, Paul McCartney, the charming and melodic, George Harrison, the quiet and spiritual, and Ringo Starr, the witty and rhythmic. Four ordinary lads drawn together by a shared love of music. They honed their craft in small clubs and dingy basements, far from the glitz and glamour of the world stage. Coming from humble beginnings, they were just like you and me. They had dreams, ambitions, but little did they know the extraordinary journey that lay ahead. These four lads didn't know they were about to become a cultural phenomenon. Our journey begins in the heart of Liverpool, in the late 1950s. A time and place as significant as any in the annals of rock and roll, for it was here that four lads, each with a passion for music, came together to form a band. This was the birth of the Beatles. John Lennon, a rebellious teenager with a knack for songwriting, founded the group known initially as the Quarrymen. A young Paul McCartney, a friend of Lennon's, soon joined, his melodic bass playing and songwriting prowess complementing Lennon's raw talent. George Harrison, a friend of Paul's, was the next to join, bringing his distinct guitar style to the mix. The final piece of the puzzle came in the form of Ringo Starr, whose charismatic drumming style gave the band its distinctive beat. Their early days were not without struggle. They honed their skills in small clubs around Liverpool, playing to whoever would listen. It was in one of these clubs, the now legendary Cavern Club, that they played their first significant gig. The Cavern Club, a dank, smoky venue, was far from glamorous, but it was here that the Beatles cut their teeth, mastering their craft and refining their sound. The Beatles were not an overnight success. They faced their fair share of rejections and setbacks, but they were determined to make their mark. They played night after night, gig after gig, slowly building a following. Their performances were energetic, their harmonies tight, and their charisma undeniable. They were a band with a dream, and they were willing to work tirelessly to achieve it. And so, with a few gigs under their belt, the Beatles set sail to conquer new horizons. Little did they know they were about to change the course of music history forever. The Beatles' journey took them to the city of Hamburg, Germany. In the early 60s, they arrived in this bustling port city, a stark contrast from their humble beginnings in Liverpool. Hamburg was a city that never slept, and neither did the Beatles during their tenure there. They were booked to play at the Indra Club, a seedy venue in the red light district. The Beatles were not just performers, they were entertainers, working up to 8 hours a night, 7 days a week. The grueling schedule was, in no small part, a crucible that molded them into a tight-knit, formidable band. On stage, they experimented with their sound, their style, and their stage presence. They began incorporating covers of American rock and roll and R&B hits into their sets, songs they wouldn't have had the chance to play back home. The raucous nightlife of Hamburg encouraged a more energetic, wilder performance style, and the Beatles were more than willing to oblige. Offstage, they were exposed to a diverse range of music and culture. They met musicians from all over the world, each bringing their unique influences to the table. This exposure had a profound impact on their own music, broadening their horizons and expanding their musical vocabulary. But it wasn't all about the music. Hamburg was also where they met Astrid Kirchherr, a German photographer who was instrumental in shaping the Beatles' image. She introduced them to the mop-top hairstyle, an iconic look that would become synonymous with the band. Their time in Hamburg was intense, filled with long nights, hard work, and moments of sheer brilliance. It was here that they honed their skills, developed their unique sound, and laid the groundwork for their future success. The Beatles left Hamburg as a different band, a band ready to take on the world. Hamburg was a stepping stone, a place that toughened them up for their journey ahead. Once back in England, the Beatles' fame started to rise. The country's youth was in the throes of a cultural shift, and these four lads from Liverpool were right at the heart of it all. They had a sound that was different, a style that was unique, and their energy was infectious. The Beatles' music began to reverberate through the airwaves, and the nation started to take notice. Their first single, Love Me Do, was released in October of 1962. It was a simple, catchy tune that was a departure from the music of the time. It had a distinct rock and roll vibe with a harmonica that lent a bluesy feel. This was the Beatles, raw and unpolished, yet undeniably captivating. Love Me Do climbed the charts, peaking at number 17. It was a modest success, but it was just the beginning. The Beatles were gaining traction and their fan base was growing. They were no longer just a band playing in small clubs in Liverpool and Hamburg. They were now recording artists with a single on the charts. Their performances were electrifying and their charisma was undeniable. The youth were drawn to them, and so the Beatles' fan base started to swell. The Beatles' rise to fame was not just about their music, it was about their image, their attitude, and their connection with the fans. They were relatable, they were cheeky, they were the Beatles, their music was their medium, but their appeal was much broader. It was a Beatles phenomenon. By the end of 1962, the Beatles had become a household name in Britain. Their popularity was soaring and their fan base was expanding. The Beatles were on the cusp of a breakthrough and the world was about to witness the birth of Beatle Mania. The Beatles were now not just a band, they were a sensation that was about to take the world by storm, changing the face of music and popular culture forever. The Beatles' invasion of America marked the beginning of what we now know as Beatle Mania. In the chill of February 1964, the Beatles set foot on American soil for the first time. Fresh off the plane from Liverpool, these four lads were about to introduce a sound that would reverberate through the very fabric of American music. Their first stop, The Ed Sullivan Show, a television institution watched by millions. It was the perfect platform for the Beatles to showcase their unique style. That night, 73 million viewers tuned in, making it one of the most watched television events in history. The Beatles performed 5 songs on the live broadcast. As they strummed the opening chords to All My Loving, the crowd erupted into a frenzy of screams and cheers, and thus Beatlemania was born. The hysteria that followed was unlike anything the music industry had ever seen. Fans, affectionately known as Beatlemaniacs, swarmed the streets wherever the Beatles went. They screamed, they cried, they fainted. It was a level of fan devotion that was unprecedented. But Beatlemania was not just about the music. It was a phenomenon that transcended the band itself. It was about the hair, the famous mop-top haircuts that became a symbol of rebellion for the youth. It was about the clothes, the matching suits that set a new trend in fashion. It was about the attitude, the cheeky charm and witty banter that made them relatable to their fans. The Beatles didn't just bring their music to America. They brought with them a whole new way of thinking, of being, of viewing the world. They were not just musicians, they were influencers, trendsetters, icons. The Beatles' impact was so profound that even the word mania seems inadequate to describe it. It was more than a mania, it was a Beatle phenomenon, a Beatle revolution. And it didn't stop in America, it spread across the globe, reaching fans in every corner of the world. It was a global wave of Beatlemania, and it was unstoppable. Beatlemania was not just a craze, it was a cultural revolution. But how exactly did the Beatles change music and culture? The Beatles' innovative music style was a breath of fresh air that blew across the world's music scene in the 1960s. They were the pioneers of the British invasion, a time when British music, fashion and culture stormed the American shores, forever transforming the face of American pop culture. The Beatles' music was a magical blend of rock and roll, rhythm and blues, pop, and later elements of classical and experimental music. They weren't afraid to push boundaries and experiment with sounds and recording techniques. They introduced the concept of the album as an art form, not just a collection of singles. Their use of the studio as an instrument was revolutionary, and it opened up a new world of possibilities for future musicians. The Beatles didn't just change music, they also had a profound influence on pop culture. Their distinct mop-top hairstyles became a fashion statement. Their wit, charm, and irreverence made them media darlings and endeared them to millions worldwide. They were symbols of the youth and energy of that era, embodying the hopes, dreams, and rebellious spirit of the 1960s youth. Their impact was not just confined to music and fashion. The Beatles' lyrics often touched upon themes of love, peace, and unity, resonating with the counterculture movement of the 1960s. They used their platform to voice their opinions on social and political issues, inspiring their fans to think critically and question the status quo. The Beatles' legacy extends far beyond their music. They have left a lasting impact on the world, influencing countless artists and shaping the course of popular music and culture. Their influence can still be seen and felt today, over 5 decades after they first burst onto the scene. The Beatles didn't just create music, they created a legacy. Like all good things, the Beatles' journey also had an end. The year was 1970. A decade of revolution and change had come to a close, and with it, the Beatles' time as a band. Tensions had been simmering within the group for some time, fueled by artistic differences, management issues, and the pressures of fame. The 4 lads from Liverpool, who had once stood united on the world stage, found themselves at crossroads, leading to their official breakup. John Lennon, the outspoken and rebellious Beatle, was the first to leave. He pursued a solo career that was as controversial as it was successful, producing hits like Imagine and Instant Karma. His life was tragically cut short in 1980, but his music and message of peace continue to resonate today. Paul McCartney, the melodious voice behind many of the Beatles' biggest hits, also embarked on a successful solo career. He formed the band Wings and produced numerous chart-topping hits. McCartney's music, both with the Beatles and as a solo artist, has left an indelible mark on the world of music. George Harrison, the quiet Beatle, found his own voice after the band's breakup. His solo work, including the critically acclaimed album All Things Must Pass, showcased his spiritual growth and his exceptional talent as a songwriter. Harrison passed away in 2001, leaving behind a rich musical legacy. Ringo Starr, the band's charismatic drummer, also enjoyed success in his solo career. Known for his distinctive drumming style, Starr has continued to perform and release music over the years. The Beatles may have disbanded, but their music lives on. Their songs continue to inspire new generations of musicians and fans alike. Their impact on music and culture is immeasurable. The Beatles were not just a band, they were and continue to be a phenomenon. Their journey may have ended, but their legacy is far from over. The Beatles may have disbanded, but their music lives on. And that's the story of how 4 lads from Liverpool changed music forever. The Beatles, as we've traced, weren't just a band. They were a phenomenon that disrupted the music industry and the cultural landscape of the 20th century. They started out as an ordinary group of mates with dreams and a shared love for music. Their journey from the basement clubs of Hamburg to the zenith of global fame is nothing short of extraordinary. They didn't just create music, they created a revolution. The Beatles' rise to fame, aptly termed Beatle Mania, was a testament to their unique sound, their charisma, and their ability to connect with the youth of their time. They were the voice of a generation, their songs echoing the sentiments, hopes, and dreams of millions around the world. They pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible in music, introducing new techniques and styles that would become the foundation for many artists who followed. Their impact on music transcended genres and generations and continues to be felt even today. But beyond music, the Beatles also left an indelible mark on culture and society. They were at the forefront of the cultural revolution of the 60s, their influence seeping into fashion, film, and even politics. They challenged norms, broke conventions, and in doing so, changed the way we see the world. Their journey, however, was not without its share of trials and tribulations. The end of an era came all too soon, but their legacy lives on. The Beatles' story is one of passion, innovation, and resilience. It's a reminder of the power of music and the magic that happens when we dare to dream. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to Time Capsule Tales 811. It helps the channel out. Thank you.